Hi guys, welcome to week 2. Hopefully week 1 went all right and you were able to successfully get all the assignments completed and you understood how to do everything. So in the meantime, if you have any questions, please let me know. I'm always happy to chat with you about any problems that you're having or comments that you have. So this week we really got into defining what culture is, what communication is, and what intercultural communication is. So it was a pretty long chapter. Hopefully you guys got through it all right, but lots of definitions. So let's get right into it. The authors define intercultural communication as when people from different cultural backgrounds interact. And communication is always happening within that situation. You might remember from some of your introduction to communication courses that communication is happening all the time. Now, the authors define culture in a number of ways, but their primary definition is that culture is the learned pattern of perception, values, and behaviors that's shared by a group of people. So what do they mean by this? So culture is learned. You're not born understanding what it means to be an American. That as we grow up, we're socialized to understand the way that we do things. And so other people within our group taught us how to be members, both consciously and subconsciously, of our culture. In terms of perceptions and values, the way that cultural groups share perceptions and ways of looking at the world, it varies in a lot of different ways, but one of the major ways is that values are shared. So it's about what people believe are good, bad, and right and wrong within a culture. And the way that we see the world is affected deeply by these values. Now, these values and the culture is shared amongst the people that are in the group, and so while there might be some deviation within it, generally you can say that most people believe particular values and perceptions with their other group members. And so one of the things that we need to think about, though, is that sometimes membership in a group is voluntary and sometimes it's involuntary. And so you're born a particular race, a particular ability, a particular cultural heritage group. You're born at a particular time, so you're a particular age. There's very little that you can do about that. But then there's voluntary associations. So a sorority or fraternity, for example, that you choose to belong to that group. And so when we're thinking about interacting with people culturally, or doing intercultural interaction with other people, if they were a voluntary member or an involuntary member of a group really matters. Remember that culture is dynamic, it's always changing. For example, the gay rights movement, that's a group that has changed a lot over the last 20 years, even the last 10 years. And so what it meant to be gay 15 years ago was quite different than what it means to be gay today. Now, communication, as you might recall from your Intro to Comm courses, is a symbolic process where meaning is shared and negotiated between people. And so if you are attributing meaning to someone else's words or actions, you are communicating. It's symbolic and it's a process and it's negotiated. Communication is not always intentional. So, for example, nonverbal communication. So if I look at you and I'm look bored, I am perhaps not intentionally telling you I'm bored. Remember that communication is oriented towards the receiver, the person who is perceiving the message. We also talked a lot about different value schemes. And so there's a big group of psychologists and organizational psychologists and communication scholars that look at different ways that the world looks at values. And so be sure to know these different beliefs about what values are shared. But make sure that you go through those pretty well. And in your activity for this week, you'll get to do those really well. I guess the most important one for you to know probably is the Hofstede values, that look at power distance, masculinity and femininity, uncertainty avoidance, and long-term orientation. So make sure that you know those pretty well. Um, Now, don't forget as well that the context in which communication occurs can really matter. And so, if people are talking in a political context or a social context or a historical context, this can really influence how people are perceiving messages. Also, remember that power matters. And so, communication between two people is very rarely when they're on even footing. And so, this can affect how people talk to each other. So, for example, if you're talking to a police officer, she or he has power over you. And so, you're more likely to acknowledge that power by deferring to him or her, for example. So, some barriers to intercultural communication are ethnocentrism, that people have a strong belief that their own cultural group is superior to others. Another is stereotyping, so that is widely held beliefs about a group of people that people go to easily categorize others. They can sometimes be positive and sometimes be negative. And prejudice is different than stereotypes because prejudice means that you have little to no experience with that group. Stereotypes tell you what a group is like, whereas prejudice tells you how you're going to feel about that group, negatively or positively. People are prejudiced because their minds are lazy. They want to quickly assess how to feel about people versus judging them as individuals. And then discrimination is the behaviors that result from stereotypes or prejudice. So discrimination means formalized or informalized inequalities that exist based on differences. So that's this chapter. It was long. Hopefully I went through it all right for you. If you have any questions, please let me know. Your online discussion forum, you're given a statement this week, and please react to it. 6 to 10 sentences online. If you had any problems with it last week, hopefully you can overcome them this week. And remember, that needs to be posted by Tuesday night. Your quiz take by Wednesday night, and then your writing assignment actually this week probably shouldn't be too difficult. It's a worksheet that you're given that you're going to self-assess where your values are, and then look at the different value frameworks in the book and fill that in, and then make sure to upload that worksheet by Thursday. So if you have any questions or concerns, let me know. Otherwise, have a really good week.